the outskirts of the quiet town of Willowbrook, its ornate architecture casting an imposing shadow over the surrounding woods. The mansion was a relic of a bygone era, a testament to the opulence of a wealthy family that had once called it home. But the grandeur of the house concealed a dark and haunting secret. For generations, the Ashcroft family had lived within the mansion's walls, their wealth and privilege making them the envy of the town. But beneath their aristocratic façade lay a history steeped in tragedy and cruelty. The legend spoke of a malevolent spirit that had plagued the Ashcrofts for centuries, a vengeful entity that sought to punish the family for the sins of their ancestors. It was said that the spirit could only be appeased by the blood of the Ashcrofts, and so a curse had been born. As the years passed, the curse took on a more sinister form. A tenebrous figure emerged from the shadows, a maniacal killer who came to be known as the Willowbrook Butcher. His reign of terror had lasted for decades, and his victims were always members of the Ashcroft family. The townsfolk whispered that the butcher was possessed by the vengeful spirit, compelled to carry out its malevolent will. No one had ever seen his face, for he wore a grotesque mask made of human skin, a chilling reminder of the horrors he had committed. The Ashcrofts lived in constant fear, their opulent mansion transformed into a prison from which there was no escape. They had fortified the house with security measures, hired private investigators, and even consulted psychics and mediums. But the butcher always found a way. The current head of the Ashcroft family was Eleanor, a woman in her late 30s who had inherited the mansion and its curse. She lived with her husband, Richard, and their two children, Charlotte and Thomas. They were the last of the Ashcrofts, the final descendants of a family marked for annihilation. Eleanor had heard the stories of the butcher from her childhood, the tales of bloodshed and terror that had haunted her family for centuries. But she was determined to break the cycle, to rid her family of the curse that had plagued them for so long. One stormy night, as lightning streaked across the sky and thunder rattled the windows, Eleanor made a fateful decision. She had learned of an ancient ritual that could banish the vengeful spirit once and for all. It involved confronting the butcher and offering him a deal that would spare her family's lives. With a sense of dread and determination, Eleanor ventured into the heart of the mansion, where she knew the butcher would find her. She carried with her a family heirloom, an ornate dagger that had been passed down for generations. In the dimly lit corridor, the butcher's presence materialized, his grotesque mask peering out from the darkness. Eleanor's heart raced, but she stood her ground, clutching the dagger tightly. "I know why you haunt my family," she said, her voice steady. "I offer you a deal. Spare my family, and I will give you what you seek." The butcher's hollow eyes seemed to bore into her soul, and for a moment, Eleanor feared that her offer had fallen on deaf ears. But then he nodded. Eleanor knew that the butcher sought vengeance for a terrible injustice committed by her ancestors. With trembling hands, she made a solemn vow to right the wrongs of the past, to ensure that justice would be served. In that moment, the curse was broken. The butcher's vengeful spirit dissipated into the ether, leaving behind only a chilling silence. Eleanor's family was safe, but the shocking twist came in the form of a confession, a revelation that shook Eleanor to her core. The butcher had been none other than her own husband, Richard. He had donned the grotesque mask and carried out the grisly deeds in an attempt to maintain control over the family's wealth and power. Richard's deception had nearly succeeded, but Eleanor's bravery and determination had exposed his dark secret. He was arrested, and the truth of his crimes sent shockwaves through the town. The old Victorian house, once a place of terror, was transformed into a symbol of redemption and justice. Eleanor vowed to use her family's wealth for good, to atone for the sins of her ancestors, and to ensure that the curse would never return. As the years passed, the dark history of the Ashcroft family faded into legend, a cautionary tale of the dangers of greed and deceit. The mansion that had once been a place of horror was now a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of courage and the resilience of the human spirit. But the town of Willowbrook would never forget the terror that had once gripped its streets, the shadowy figure known as the Willowbrook Butcher, and the curse that had bound the Ashcroft family to a legacy of bloodshed and fear. The revelation of Richard's true identity as the Willowbrook Butcher sent shockwaves through the town of Willowbrook. The quiet community had never before witnessed such a heinous betrayal within their midst. The trial that followed was a spectacle, with the townspeople and the media captivated by the gruesome details of the crimes and the shocking twist in the tale. As the trial proceeded, Richard's defense attorney painted a disturbing picture of a man driven to madness by the weight of the Ashcroft family's curse. He argued that Richard had believed himself possessed by the malevolent spirit, and the brutal acts he had committed were the result of this psychological torment. It was a desperate attempt to save his client from the gallows. Eleanor, on the other hand, was a broken woman. She had loved and trusted her husband for years, never suspecting the darkness that lurked within him. She struggled to come to terms with the fact that the man she had shared her life with had been responsible for the terror that had haunted her family for generations. As the trial reached its climax, the jury returned a verdict of guilty. Richard was sentenced to life in prison, his true identity forever etched in infamy. He was led away in handcuffs, his grotesque mask finally removed to reveal the face of a man who had hidden behind a facade of normalcy for far too long. Eleanor and her children, Charlotte and Thomas, were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. The revelation of Richard's crimes had brought shame and disgrace upon the Ashcroft name, and they faced ostracism from the townspeople who had once envied their wealth and privilege. But Eleanor was determined to use her family's wealth for good, to rebuild the reputation of the Ashcroft name, and make amends for the sins of her ancestors. She donated generously to local charities, funded scholarships for underprivileged children, and worked tirelessly to improve the lives of the townspeople who had suffered at the hands of her family's curse. The old Victorian house, once a place of terror, became a symbol of redemption and transformation. Eleanor opened its doors to the public, turning it into a museum dedicated to the history of the Ashcroft family and their journey from darkness to light. Visitors from near and far came to see the mansion and learn about its haunting past. They marveled at the opulent architecture, the ornate furnishings, and the stories of the Ashcroft family's struggle to break free from the curse that had plagued them for centuries. As the years passed, the memory of the Willowbrook Butcher began to fade, replaced by the legacy of the Ashcroft family's redemption. The townspeople forgave Eleanor and her children, recognizing the genuine remorse and determination to make amends. Eleanor's commitment to justice and charity earned her the respect and admiration of the community. She became a beloved figure in Willowbrook, known for her strength, resilience, and unwavering dedication to doing what was right. But the old Victorian house still held its secrets, and some believed that the malevolent spirit that had once haunted the Ashcrofts still lingered within its walls. Visitors claimed to hear whispers in the night and see shadowy figures moving in the corners of their vision. Eleanor dismissed such claims as mere superstition, insisting that the curse had been broken for good. Still, there were those who couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness of the past was not so easily vanquished.